I'm really happy to see you today, Katie.
Thank you, Luke. Good to see you too.
Yeah, this is a dream come true. It's funny. I'm here in Hollywood and I worked in the entertainment industry for 17 years and worked with tons of celebrities and things like that. And I got very jaded to being starstruck. But
Uh-huh.
when it comes to spiritual teachers and people that have really had an impact on my life, I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to Byron Katie.
Oh,
It's such,
Luke,
it's
gosh.
such a,
Well,
it's a great moment.
yeah, it is. That's a sweet experience, isn't it?
It is.
It
Yeah.
says a lot about you and the joy and
I'm
yeah,
just,
that's sweet.
I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I do now for a living. And it brings me back to the first time I saw you speak. It was at some hotel down by LAX, and I think it's called the Hacienda now. It's on Sepulveda, and I was in my early 20s. I'd moved to Hollywood and gotten involved in drugs and was just in really bad shape. And my dad was already kind of into personal development and things like that, and so he flew out here from Colorado and took me to see you in hopes that I might hear something that would wake me up. And what's funny is, even as unconscious as I was at that time in my life, that experience really struck me. And the general takeaway from it was this idea that there was a mind and then there was a me.
Yeah.
And it would be years later until I actually started to further develop that awareness, and ended up getting sober, thank God, and all of that stuff, and have been for many years. But that was my first introduction to, I think, anyone talking about the concepts that you share. And so I thank you for that little seed that was planted.
Oh, for my part, I'd like to even take credit for that, but I can't. But in a way, it is kind of like a partnership. But the way you understood whatever I said, oh, that's yours, and I love that for all of us. That inner understanding that we are in some ways responsible for once we really understand from experience that we have that power, that is our power.
Absolutely. So, in the interest of time, because I know we had a little technical difficulties here, and I want to really get in all the juice that we can for the audience that's going to be listening to this. And your story is quite fascinating, and I want to zip through that a little bit and get into the work and these concepts that you've been sharing with the world. So your story is in 1986. You're having all of these sort of emotional problems. You're really unhappy. You end up in a. I'm just going to truncate your story for you. If
Yeah.
I get anything wrong, interrupt me. But as I understand it, you end up in a halfway house. You're extremely unhappy in your life. You're having all these problems, and then you fell asleep on the floor. You wake up with a cockroach crawling on your foot, and then from that moment on, like, you just perceived the world in your life in a different way.
Yeah, I saw how my world was created. And it was absolutely clear. And of course, I began to laugh out of that understanding. And I saw simply that when I believed my thoughts, I suffered, and when I didn't believe my thoughts, I didn't suffer. And I've come to see that this is true for every human being. So by invitation, I continue to pass that on as long as people
Well,
knock on my door.
it's funny because you don't need me to promote your work. I'm relatively small in the scope of the millions of people that you've reached, and something that I've noticed about you over the years is you just tirelessly and happily and joyfully keep sharing this information with people, and it's so neat to see someone who's found their passion and really does it for the love. I mean, the work is free on your website. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's like, I mean, you have your conferences and stuff like that, I'm sure, to keep the lights on and to work
Yeah.
further with people and go deeper. But it's like, I don't know. I dig that passion. And also I related to that one part of the story with the cockroach, because it was around 1996. I was on the floor in an apartment in Canoga Park, which is not really where you want to be coming off drugs. But I was detoxing at, this sordid place, and, was on the floor, and cockroaches started to appear around me on the floor. But to my knowledge, they never crawled on me, and that it's funny because that was the beginning of my awakening. That was just, I looked around,
Oh.
I was like, yeah, no, I can't do this. This is not, at 26 years old, even I knew, like, there's got to be something above this level. So
Oh.
funny that, the cockroach was part of your journey too. Maybe it's our
That's that.
spirit animal.
That is so. Yeah, that is just so hilarious. You think someone told me cockroaches are the life that will outlive us all at one point, and of course I know nothing about it, but I'm certainly grateful.
So you have this awakening. You wake up from this, thing, and suddenly you have this knowledge about your life and how you perceive it, and then you go back to Barstow and you start to just kind of talk about how you're perceiving things, and then people generally over those first couple of years start to gravitate toward you and want to hear you talk about that, and they start to
Mhm.
share that experience. Is that how that happened?
Yeah, actually, it was so different. It was though that my physical body looked the same, but my 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 mind was so radically different that it was like night and day, and so people began to recognize this and just want to know what happened, basically. And it took me a while to learn how to talk. We could say to talk out of this world when you've lost your world. And so you've had a taste of that, your own wonderful self. But that's what love does. It joins, it includes. And as far as my tirelessness and joy and passing this on, I don't ever tire of it, Luke. If there is one person out there as confused as I was, or even close to it, or you're as in the kind of pain you were in or I was in, now that is motivation for me. There is a way out, and I would do it crawling on my belly, bleeding from the mouth with my last gasp, because I'd be happy in doing it. And I just wouldn't want anyone to miss this trip. And that's why anything of value I have is free on thework.com. Yeah. And
I relate to that so deeply, and that's why I'm sitting here with all my recording equipment doing what I do, and working
yeah.
really hard at it. It's like I've suffered in so many ways in my own life, and I've found so many solutions and so many great teachers like you over the years. It's just like there's no way. It got to a point in my life. There's no way I can't just make my life sharing what I'm finding.
Yes, pass it on and pass it
Yeah.
on
There's
and
like
pass
no
it
way
on.
to
Uh
hold it
huh.
in.
Yeah, and they're all ways go to Rome. So one not any more valuable than the other. And so you give us that menu, and I'm so grateful for that.
So when you had that experience and you woke up, I think spiritual seekers and finders alike, at times, myself included, have fantasized about, God, maybe if I just go to India and sit at the feet of the right guru, that they'll bestow upon me enlightenment and my suffering will end, and I'll be able to perceive the world in actual reality rather than through the lens of my mind and my ego. And you have these sort of, these stories of someone like Eckhart Tolle, who sitting on a park bench one day, similar to you, and then next thing you know, he's like an instant spiritual teacher.
Uh
Has this vast understanding and
huh.
wisdom. But I've heard someone ask you about, so are you enlightened? Did you become enlightened? And I have a great quote from you. People used to ask me if I was enlightened, and I would say, I don't know anything about that. I'm just someone who knows the difference between what hurts and what doesn't.
That's enough for me.
It's so great. So how do you explain, that experience that happened to you, and how someone might label that as enlightenment or something, and you put it so simply, just like, hey, I don't want to suffer.
Um, Gosh, I'm not sure I understand your question, but for me, that's as good as it gets. No suffering, I'll take it. And
Right.
then people do consider me enlightened, and that's about as enlightened as I want to be. But mind is infinite. Once it's let's say it's out of the polarity of creating um, out of a out of a out of an experience that sees things, anything is less than beautiful. So what is it going to do? What it naturally does. Mind is infinite. It doesn't stop. It expands. And when you are positive that it cannot get any better, it does. It has to, because that's the nature of mind. So it's people are afraid of losing their mind if they go too deeply into their spiritual work. But um, I love the mind. What else is there? If you don't love your mind, then you're what's left to love if you have outgrown suffering.
When you were at that point in your life, in that really dark place, how much of that was at the hand of drugs and alcohol? I've heard you talk about
A
that
lot
a
of
little.
it, a lot of it. Oh my gosh. And also compulsive overeating. I mean, if it could go in my face, that's where it belonged. and, and it was simply a way of trying to ease the pain. And I think really it was all about putting me to sleep.
And do you think that at that point in your life you were clinically alcoholic or a drug addict, or do you think you were someone that just
Um,
dabbled, abused a little bit?
that's a good question. I can tell you, I was. It sounds a little off, but it really is answer. My answer to the question is, I saw that I was addicted to what I was thinking and believing, and so my choices were really not helpful until I consider that finally it it took me to sanity. It became so painful to live out of that kind of confusion going on in my head.
And when you had that experience, then was there never any desire then to overeat or to self-medicate and to drink or any of that? Were you sort of relieved of all habits, or was that a
It
great?
all ceased to it all ceased to be a problem, and out of that I made clearer decisions. So those two things combined took care of it.
Right.
I've occasionally said that sanity doesn't suffer ever. When you're sane, the choices are so clear. But when
Right.
we're believing our thoughts that would argue against beauty, against our true nature, against what is loving, caring, kind, compassionate, and it's and not according to other people, but according to yourself, then the world ceases to be a problem and our choices are no brainers.
Did you believe in God at that point? Did you have any sort of spiritual orientation?
Oh my gosh. Um, well, I didn't have that kind of thing growing up. I no religion, and in fact, my family it wasn't even discussion. And but what they would do from their childhoods, when my mother and her siblings and family all got together, they would sing these fabulous gospels, and from their childhood, and I loved them, and I knew all the words to those, and I just discovered this about a couple of months ago. And so whatever that would give me, and also Christmas carols, on Christmas, all these Christmas carols playing. So I had I I if I had religion, I got the best of it. And whatever my mind did with
Right.
it, I know it made them really happy when they were singing with a drink in their hand.
Over the years, as you've been, unpacking that experience and further developing that awareness and sharing that with people, have you been one to study other spiritual teachers or teachings or books or any of that, or has that not been necessary because you kind of had this, awakening and it showed you what you needed to know to work with yourself?
Yeah, um, people are my religion, and I see the goodness in everyone, and 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 I think goodness is my and that would be my own definition of goodness. Connection, I think that's my religion, and it may be. I'm thinking about it, but anything that I would believe against another human being um, is the opposite of my religion.
Right. so you
Yeah,
so you sort of come up with your own
I
world.
I believe in goodness.
Yeah. So I'd like to talk about a few of your quotes and just ask you to unpack a few of them because I've listened to you probably hundreds of hours, just in
Uh,
audio programs and podcasts. You have a great podcast, by the way, anyone listening.
oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, where you go through the work with people, and I listen to it all the time. And it's in my probably have about four podcasts I listen to on an ongoing basis, and that's one especially I listen to in the morning just to set my head right and help me to establish that sense of separation between actual reality and the reality that my mind is about to project on the world in
Yeah.
my life. But one of my favorites with you that you've said is defense is the first act of war. Could you explain that?
Mm. Yeah, it just is. And I invite everyone to just test it. If someone accuses you of something and you start defending, just feel what that feels like. Or if they accuse you of something, get very still and just feel that thing that arises that feels like you're about to attack, which in other words, defend. And then just let that let that fall and then consider, are they right? And if they're not right, then to continue to listen because they're giving me information that I may need, that I'm blind to. Maybe they're saying something about me that so blindsided me rather than defend against that realization they're giving me, to realize the information they're giving me, look to myself and wake up from anything that would be um, I guess, express a lack of kindness.
And
But
in a sense, when one resists the temptation to defend, I find because I've been, when I learn things from people like you, I practice it. I mean, that's
uh,
what I figured out. That's
oh,
what
I'm
works.
so
You can read all the
glad.
spiritual books in the world, but if you don't do it, it's meaningless.
Yeah. Oh, so true.
But I'll feel myself kind of like, I want to show
Mm-hmm.
them they're wrong, and whatever I'm being
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote accused of is incorrect, and resisting that, it really has this magical effect of diffusing that person and sort of taking down their offense by you having nothing to attach to. And it's almost like they can't get a hook in you. They are at times even frustrated because they can't get you or your ego to engage, and then it's sort of like they just kind of give up. Have you noticed that to be true?
Well, I'm going back to what I said a little earlier. I'm so busy with self-realization, I just don't have the energy to realize anyone else.
Right, right.
They work on theirs, I work on mine. But when someone says, "Katie, you're ridiculous," and maybe they say it in a bunch of people, and my feelings are hurt, then I'm not looking to see, potentially, take a look and where am I being ridiculous? How can I learn from what they're saying? But um, any time I would identify, Luke, I am protecting nothing more than the identity, this false identity that I want people to see me as. So when they say, "Katie, you're ridiculous," if my identity is I am not ridiculous, I'm the all-knowing or whatever, and someone says you're ridiculous, that's something to wake up to, get a clue, wake up to, and
Right.
thank them for their awareness that was certainly beyond mine, or just stay asleep and separate. But no, I oh my gosh, anyone that would judge me is growing me if I'm listening, and in that listening, Luke, is where it's you can't argue with the air. So if I'm not defending, it leaves them nothing to argue with.
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's nothing to sink your teeth into at that point,
yeah.
that kind of leads me into another one of my favorite quotes and concepts of yours, and that there are only three kinds of business in the universe: mine, yours, and God's. And then you say, whose business is it if an earthquake happens? God's business. you know, and that can really be applied to so many things in one's life. So I
It
think of it as like
can.
it's kind of that way of interacting in the world is it's like the antidote to codependency and
Hmm.
feeling the need to control others and
Hmm.
situations and all of that. Could you explain what you mean by those three kinds
Well,
of
let's say my son's in Venice Beach, and I'm here in Ojai, and I am mentally running his life. He should this, he shouldn't that, and this and this and that, whatever it is. So my body's here in Ojai, but but my I'm in Venice Beach running my son's business, and that is completely insane. So anytime any of your listeners, if you ever feel lonely, ask yourself mentally, whose business are you in? Just notice that. And when I notice that, I leave my son's business. I notice I'm back here, right now, present, accounted for, all gathered up, in this unity, and grateful. It's a way of staying in the moment. This three kinds of business thing that
I love
concocted.
that. Again, like so many of your teachings, it's so simple. And anytime I start to become disturbed when it has to do with other people, I just ask myself that question.
Yeah.
Or even the world, even, politics and so many things that people get their knickers in a twist about. It's like
Yep.
you realize like how little control you actually have over
Yes.
anything outside of oneself,
Yeah, it's like come home, and every time you do, you get present and you see all the support in the world is right here, right now. Everything we need is right here, right now. We have skin, we have clothes, we have hair, we have whatever we're standing on is supporting us. The chair we're sitting on is supporting us. I mean, if you sat there for 1,000 years, you couldn't stop counting the support that's available right here, right now, in this moment.
There's a couple other things that I wanted to cover along these lines. One is you say when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
peace doesn't require two people; it requires only one.
Hmm.
It's like I just I think it's so powerful to work with our perception of reality. And every day I learn more and more as I'm suffering that it really is not what's happening, but it's how I'm framing that and how I'm labeling it and
Yeah.
how I'm interpreting everything.
Yeah. Any suffering is the mind is then the apparent past and future, and I love that this inquiry. I invite people to, when we sit in the question, how do I react when I believe what I'm believing? Then we can see, those images of past, future, and see that witnessing those images. If we're in, if you want a little shame and guilt, get a future. I mean, a past. If you want a little fear and terror, get a future. But just to notice where you are, that there is a movie going on. It's a dream, and just to notice and wake you up to this present moment where everything in life that we are directed to do is possible. It's not later. Everything is just right here to do. And this is where we make change. And we think, these minor little things are not valuable, but they're entirely valuable. It's empowering to make the changes we can make.
There's something else that you talk a lot about in your work, and that's this seeking for love and approval. And
Mm.
this is something I've really struggled with a lot throughout my life. Probably as a result of not receiving some of it early on, as
Uh-huh.
much as maybe I wanted or needed or thought that I did. And then now this is, I think, is so prevalent with younger people too, and social media. And
Yeah.
I mean, I have my social media going right now as we record, and I'm aware that I want to sound intelligent and smart and funny, and I want those people watching to think that I'm awesome. And
But then you have to ask yourself what for.
yeah, exactly. But I think through that awareness, I'm becoming less a victim of that.
Yes.
And more able to
Yeah.
just be free and to be myself. And you say the irony of the struggle to win love and approval is that it makes it very difficult to experience them.
Yes, it definitely does. If I had a prayer, it would be this: God, spare me from the desire to seek love, approval, or appreciation. Amen.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah, so
let's
that's
get
what
in.
you're doing. You're sparing yourself from that desire, and it frees you up.
Right. And I guess maybe it's a desire that can never be fully fulfilled from outside either, right?
It's absolutely. I
Or
think
maybe
you're
not
onto
at all.
something really important. I look at
Yeah.
that not at all.
Well, it's interesting for me that maybe it's just part of getting older and evolving. I think as some of us age, we just tend to care a little less about some of the the more thinly, the more empty desires like that, and you kind of just get
Uh-huh.
to know and like yourself. But for me, I think I care less just because the feeling of being free of that desire and that attachment to wanting everyone to just think I'm the coolest guy in the world and just to be kind of more authentic, it just feels so good to be free. It
You know,
actually
so
feels better
so
than
yeah,
people's approval.
yeah. So that's what's going on, and you've sat in that practice long enough to really get the difference and the cause and effect of what that is, and it's you're nurturing it, honoring it, respecting it, and taking it into practice. That's a beautiful thing, Luke.
Would you say that as someone loses the attachment and the desire for that approval and starts to develop more of a sense of self-worth and self-love, that ironically they might end up getting more of what they were looking for by not wanting it and needing it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's
Interesting. Okay.
where when people like us, they like who we are as opposed to who we wanted them to see us as.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get
So we're
into
much more likable.
right, right. I guess that authenticity is attractive then to
Well,
people.
well, it is a facade we can all see through. But it's um, except our own, and so that practice you're in is it's beautiful.
I'd like to get into a little bit of the work, which is kind of the gold standard of what you do. And this is something that, again, is just from listening to you enough. And I've actually 2 years ago or so, I went through a really rough patch, and I hired a certified coach in the
Oh,
work.
good, good.
Yeah, and I did some judge your neighbor worksheets and things like that. And I was just desperate enough where I got on a Skype call with this guy who was very helpful and went through it. And now it's become a little bit more of just an automatic process. The moment my mind says this sucks, life sucks, that person sucks, I suck, to just within that moment go, well, is that actually reality? you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Is that true?
And so,
Really?
and when it doesn't really, when those thoughts they don't dig in that deeply, I don't find myself having to go through the whole process.
Yeah.
It's like once
Yes.
something's lodged in, then I might have to go through a further inquiry and kind of dig deep.
Uh-huh.
But could you run
Hmm.
us through the four questions in a case
So,
study scenario?
so the so what's a concept that an assumption or judgment that we might look at?
All right, I've got one for you actually, because I was actually racking my brain, like, okay, do I have any resentments against anyone? And I don't think I have a bona fide resentment anymore. I
Hmm.
don't tend to
But
get them
that
that
doesn't
much,
stop concepts from
but
coming.
I found one.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a bona fide resentment because it's not reoccurring in my mind over and over again where I'm obsessed with, this person and what they did. But I did
Hmm.
find a little bit of a grudge that I had. And there was a situation in which someone who's really prominent in the industry I'm in, that I've supported for a number of years and really helped promote their company and the things that they do. I finally asked for like a favor in return, and it was for them to kind of highlight me and present me to some of their followers and things like that. So it was sort of a media opportunity for me, and I finally got up the courage to pitch myself for it. And I think I had a really strong pitch, and they they agreed to do it and put me in touch with their people. And then we were leading up to the date that was going to happen, which is this coming June. And then I just got a really sort of what I perceived to be a cold, short email that just said, "Oh, they're too busy now. We're not going to do it." And there wasn't a like, "Oh, hey, let's reschedule" or anything like that. And I thought
Yeah.
maybe they're just in a hurry. So I emailed back and said, "Oh, do you want to pick a new date?" And then I never heard back. And
Yeah.
so my mind said, "Oh, I've helped them so much. They don't respect me. I need them in my
Hmm.
career. Without them and them,
You know,
making me more popular,
the hook for me is they owe me.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they owe
Okay.
me. And
Oh,
so,
that's a good one.
isn't it a good one?
That's
Those
funny.
were,
I didn't even see that one.
well,
That's great.
those were all good. Well, I have a little longer in this inquiry than you. So they
Right.
owe you. Is it true?
I'll go through it from a limited perspective. Yes, I've helped them, and now they won't help me. They do owe me.
Okay, so they owe you. And those of you listening, the answer to the first two questions, you just sit in that and wait to be shown the answer out of experience. They owe you. Is it true? And the answer is always one syllable. It's either yes or no. So it really takes stillness. So they owe you.
If I'm honest and self-aware, no, they don't owe me.
Okay, so just let that settle in. This is so huge. It goes with everything we do. We think if we smile at a stranger, they owe us one. It's just far reaching. And
Right.
and if I do a kind deed, then I expect people to notice and tell people about it. They owe me. It's insidious. It's just really so
So
now.
let's say I can't. Let's just back up and say I can't get to that place, and you ask me, okay, is that true?
So your
They
answer
owe me
is
this.
still
Yeah.
yes if you believe it's
You know
yes.
what? They do owe me. It's not fair what they've done by rejecting me.
Okay, so yes, and you just land there. You've meditated on it. You're still, and a yes still arises. So how do you react? Notice, close your eyes and witness. And the situation is they didn't, they sent you the email that said, we're just too busy. Okay. Oh, they're just too busy. Okay. So let's say that's the situation. So they owe you. Notice how you react. And those of you listening, this includes emotions, very important. And then the images of past, future. Notice how you react. What happens when you believe the thought they owe you?
Yeah, I'm sitting there seeing the email. It's first thing in the morning, and who I am with that thought that they owe me is, well, it's a sense of rejection too. It's like, what's wrong with me? Why don't you guys want me? And then the other side of that, I guess, is like, and you owe me anyway. It's
Yeah,
like,
uh-huh.
whether or not you want me, you should,
Yeah,
quote unquote, be helping me back because
yeah,
I've been so loyal to you.
yeah. And feel the emotions, any anger or um, um, disrespect. Like
Yeah,
they're
there's
disrespecting you too,
there's
and what
anger,
you are representing in your work.
there's anger, and there's a bit of shame too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's who I am when I believe that thought.
Now, where do you feel that as you witness the movie of them rejecting you? Um, um, too busy. Where do you feel those emotions in your body?
In my heart, I'm really in touch with it.
Yeah. And any stress across your chest or your belly or your shoulders?
Yeah, yeah, my back and my chest as I go
Hmm.
back there and relive that surprise slash
Yeah.
shock of reading that very brief and what I perceive to be rude email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they owe me. So now be there now in that situation in front of your computer without the thought they owe you. Just read the email in your mind's eye. They say they're too busy. Who would you be in that moment in time without the thought they owe me?
I would be free, and I would be free to explore other opportunities that are in better alignment because obviously that one's not.
Yeah. And notice the resentment's gone without the thought they owe me. And notice you can read it. They are too busy.
Right, right. It's like I read the words, their schedules change. They've got too much going on. They're too busy. And I literally read that. I translate that into my mind's language, which is, you're not worth it. We don't like you. We don't acknowledge the things you've done for
They're
us. And
making excuses because of everything you're saying there.
yeah,
Whereas, no, they're too busy.
that's great.
And 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 if you continue to meditate there, just stay there. And of course, they're successful. Look at how well you've supported them. I mean, you have given a gift there. They You're a part of their success. You believed in them, that's why you helped them.
And then what about the turnarounds? which I
Okay.
find these I don't have down as much, but I find them
They
very fascinating.
they owe me. Turn it around. What's an opposite? They don't.
They don't owe me.
So, what does that mean to you when you consider that response on the email, that situation? They don't owe you.
If I hold that they don't owe me, then I actually can connect with the fact that I was able to contribute to their success without wanting something in return.
And you did a really good job. And I have one. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, because these turnarounds are something we muse within that situation. So they owe me, they don't owe me. I didn't send them a bill. I didn't tell them that the requirement, the condition of my support and help is that they support me. And
Right.
and was there a contract, a signed
Right.
contract?
Oh, that's good.
Other than that, we're just Looney Tunes. They
So
owe me. So they owe you. Is it true?
no, it's not.
No. It's just the idea that people owe me is laughable at this point because I've heard I've sat in this I've had time to sit in there.
I was able with that situation because one of the things that my mind told me was they disrespected me. That was my thing, like, my guy thing, like, don't disrespect me. And then I actually did one of those turnarounds kind of just as I was contemplating this and seeking relief from this, this thought form and all that, was that I disrespected me. And then I looked into that and I saw in the beginning of that relationship with this person that I approached that relationship from a very sort of low self-worth, needy position in the very beginning.
So feel that one. That one is.
And so in a sense, and I'm not blaming myself, but the dynamic wasn't put into place by them. I came into it with a degree of low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And so whether or not that's why they reacted that, but it was interesting for me to observe that turnaround. It's like, no, I disrespected me.
Yeah. And there's another one. They owe me, I owe them.
Wow. Oh, that's great.
So
how would you
muse that one? I owe them, and stay in the situation. You're at your computer. You're reading their message. They're too busy. I owe them.
I can connect to I owe them the respect to allow them to make the decisions they want to make for their highest good.
Well, not only that, for their own business.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one.
That's their own business. They make the decisions. They're busy.
Right. And that goes back to the three types of business. It's like, it's literally none of my business who they want to support and, give media attention to.
Yeah. And they disrespected me. Turn around, I disrespected them. They're busy. They're successful. I'm not respecting that. I'm really attacking it.
Wow, that's so great. That's so great.
So these turnarounds are meditation. We're musing on a moment in time and getting really still. And if we get still and we just, like 20 minutes a day, we just allow the mind, this incredible mind that will meet the questions, because the questions are invitation. And when we ask them to really, really get still and not try to manipulate what we're being shown, and it'll certainly crack your heart and mind wide open, as you know from experience.
What's so interesting too, that like the process we just went through, and like I said, I don't feel a lot of connection to that emotionally, but there were remnants of it. That's how I was able to access it. With anything else, I'd have to make up an arbitrary situation that I'm totally disconnected from emotionally. But I had to really kind of reach for that. But now it just seems so dumb. I mean, in a matter of 5 minutes here on this recording with you, I'm like, how silly and dumb, like, to even be upset about that. I can't believe it used up any real estate in my mind
Yeah,
since that happened 3 weeks ago or whatever, you know?
your mind is open enough that you're stepping into like responsibility, being responsible for what you're thinking and believing, as opposed to just believing it and building up these resentments that can be so subtle. We may not even call them resentments. We may just say, oh, it's minor, it's trivial. But in my world, I can I can be as enlightened to a trivial judgment or assumption as I sit in it as I can with something I thought was a really big one, you know. But I just let
Right.
my mind show me what to work as I witness, you know, life lived out of my assumptions and judgments.
It's funny as you just unpacked that I had another awareness, and that was my mind projected this idea because I'm going to see that person at a conference next week. And when I've thought about that, it's like I feel a little bit of apprehension about seeing them because I feel awkward about it. And then my mind literally was like, when I see them, I'm going to snub them. I'm not going to pay any attention to them. You know,
Uh-huh.
like, it's so childish. And now I'm
Uh-huh.
sitting here, I was like, oh my God, how unloving. And I'm, this person who has a spiritual podcast, and I'm really working on becoming a more, enlightened being myself. And it's like,
Yeah.
God, why would I want to punish someone for something they were innocent of?
And also, they didn't owe you. That was just made up.
Right, right.
And
Oh,
and
it's
you
so
know, I
funny.
can see you meeting them, going, "Oh my gosh, you know, you are just, you know." I got the thing saying you were too busy to put my podcast on the air, whatever it was, and I love you're so busy. You know, we both worked. You know, I'm glad to have had a part in that. And
Right,
but we
right.
only say it if it's true, you know. And some of this takes a little time, but it's amazing when you actually meet that person. It's like they owe me is like a post-it. They disrespected me is like a post-it that we slap on that apparent body, that physical body. So when we question those and we meet that individual, we meet them without the post-its, and it's amazing. You're connected with what without inquiry. We're not only not connected, we're disconnected, and it's just unfinished business.
Wow, that's amazing. And also, wouldn't you say that on some level people are aware when you have those conditions and resentments and things
Com-
on them, you know?
completely. Oh my gosh! But more importantly, we know that you are, meaning the one, the believer.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I'm sensing the possibility for some real change there, and not only letting go and having that awareness, but taking the step further and also just approaching them with the unconditional love and understanding and praise and gratitude for their success and their being busy as you.
Yeah, because you supported it and you can continue to.
It's so funny because I also was like, I'm not supporting them anymore. I'm going to find a company that competes with them and I'm going to start supporting them. And
Yeah.
it's so dumb. I feel I don't want to judge myself, but it's like it's so childish in a sense. It's like
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Can you stop believing what you're believing in the moment you're believing it?
what's that?
Can you stop believing what you're believing in the moment you're believing it? Is it possible?
I believe so.
Oh, really? When you're really believing it?
Well, actually, no. I guess it does take at least a few seconds to sort of be able to stop and observe that that's what you're believing.
If you do, but you've worn this, they owe me for a while.
Right.
And so you couldn't just stop believing it until you really considered it.
Right. Until I've meditated on that and gone
Uh-huh.
through some self honesty and accepted some
So
responsibility.
you believe they owed you. Were you guilty or innocent?
Well, I,
I mean,
I mean,
can you stop believing what you believe
yeah,
in the moment you believe it? It's
I was,
impossible.
I was innocent. I was doing the best that I could at that given time at that level of awareness.
You were believing. You were attached. And it's an unconsciousness in the moment. And when we question it, we wake up to our true nature. And we feel connected as opposed to separate and unimportant, etc. But I just think it's important that everyone listening to our time together today understand that no one would harm another human being or think ill of another human being if they were not confused. In other words, if they were not believing what they think about themselves, the world, and others.
Right.
So we're all innocent, and and it's a beautiful thing to have a way to wake up to that.
It is
And
beautiful. Well, listen, Katie, I know that we're coming up on the end of our call here, and you've got some stuff to do. So, I'd like to just ask you about a couple things. If you could tell us briefly about your new book, A Mind at Home with Itself.
a mind at home with itself. Oh my gosh. What can I say about the book? People love the book. Um, it's James. What can I say about it?
Uh, it's your commentary and Stephen's translation on the Diamond Sutra.
It's Stephen's translation of the Diamond Sutra, and it's my commentary on the Diamond Sutra. And the Diamond Sutra is a Buddhist text that is considered the most important text, and he just wanted to. He just wanted to know how I experience the sutra. And so that's what a mind at home with itself is.
Awesome. I'm
And
excited to get a hold of that. I've listened to your book, Loving What Is. I can't even count how many times. I mean, I used to have it in my car, probably like maybe on CD, I think first or something before MP3s were out. It's been a long time. So I'm
yeah.
excited to dig into this one. And then what about your 9-day school for the work? What's that all about?
Well, I can imagine, of course I can, but anyone suffering to spend the rest of their life without doing the school first, or at least without doing the work first. But the school is a 9-day experience where we go into the things we're most ashamed of, and our relationships, and oh my gosh, what fear and terror, and communication. And I have these capsules throughout the school that go take every segue into our head. It's like I'm putting people through the experiences I had the first 3 years of this experience that I had the privilege of waking up to.
Wow. Yeah, that's been on my bucket list for a long time. And I was looking at your calendar, and there's one coming up this summer, I believe in July, is it?
Yes.
In Ojai? Yeah. So I actually put it on my calendar yesterday. I'm like, I'm
Oh,
going to make this
good.
happen.
Oh,
Yeah,
good,
so
Luke.
let's see if I can get out there. I mean, I just love going to Ojai for any reason, but
Yeah.
it's just amazing. It's been my getaway for many years from LA here. So
Yeah, it's a nice, close little getaway.
I'm looking forward to checking that out. So you've taught my listeners and myself in this conversation and prior, and God knows how many millions of people around the world, so many things about life. Who are 3 teachers or teachings that you might recommend that our listeners go check out in addition to your own?
For me, the teacher is that I recommend is the person standing in front of me, and to just really listen. And if I'm not connected, to look to me as to why I'm not. So the world is my teacher, and everything and everyone in it, without exception. And I want to answer your I love ET. He's a friend of mine, and he's so beautiful. Let's see. I'm not that familiar with teachers.
That's okay. It's
But
great.
the one in front of me, I
I
just
like
happen
that.
to be a friend
I
of
like that
Eckhart
answer a
Tolle.
lot. And to clarify, by E.T., I'm assuming you're referring to Eckhart Tolle, not
mhm.
E.T., the alien character from Steven Spielberg movie. Nate. That's great. I mean, I
And I
love,
didn't mean any disrespect with the initials.
of course,
Yeah.
of course. Well, you're his buddy, so you can call him whatever you want. Well,
Well,
listen,
the dude abides.
yes, the dude does
He
abide.
expects anything of me, I'm sure.
That's amazing. Well, listen, this has been a real treat for me, Katie, and I just thank you so much for the work you're doing and the impact you've had on my life. And it's just fantastic. I'm so grateful, as I said in the beginning, to be able to have conversations with people like you and share your message with many people who might not be familiar with it. You know, a lot of my listeners are a bit younger than I, and maybe they don't know about you. So it's really fun to turn people on to their own awakening through this show. So thank you for joining me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for, the courage you obviously live out of, and your humility in a really beautiful way, and your vulnerability. It's precious. Thank
Thank
you,
you
Luke.
so much. So where can people find you, website, social media, and all that stuff, Katie?
Thework.com, Facebook, and look around. I think the team here does a pretty good job, and when we charge for events the way we do it, it really supports us to keep supporting the work, to move it in the world.
Awesome. Well, I support it. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you at one of those events soon, Katie.
Thank you, Luke.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh, so much love. Thank you.